There's a food most people were taught to feel guilty about, something tucked away in the back of the pantry, eaten quietly and often followed by a small wave of regret. Dark chocolate. For decades, it was treated purely as an indulgence, something to limit, something to justify. But what if the very thing so many people over 70 have been avoiding out of guilt is actually something their blood vessels have been quietly craving all along? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what happens inside your body when this specific food is eaten the right way, and why so many people have misunderstood it for their entire lives. Let's start with something most people have never really thought about. As we age, one of the most important and most overlooked systems in the body is the network of blood vessels responsible for delivering oxygen and nutrients to every organ we depend on: our brain, our heart, our skin, even our hands and feet. Over time, this network can become less flexible, less responsive, more prone to stiffness and restricted flow. This is not just about heart health in the traditional sense. It affects memory, energy levels, wound healing, and even how sharp your thinking feels on a given day. And here is where something surprising enters the picture. Certain compounds found specifically in cacao, the raw ingredient behind dark chocolate, have been studied for their direct impact on exactly this system. Here is where this becomes personal. Think about the last time you felt mentally foggy, physically tired for no clear reason, or noticed your hands or feet felt colder than they used to. Most people chalk these moments up simply to getting older, an unavoidable part of the aging process. But research increasingly points to blood flow, specifically the health and flexibility of your blood vessels, as playing a far bigger role in these everyday experiences than most people realize. Stay with me, because in less than a minute, I'm going to explain exactly how a food many people were taught to avoid may actually be supporting one of the most important systems in your aging body. Now, here is something that should genuinely make you pause. Cacao contains a group of compounds called flavanols, and specifically one called epicatechin, which has been studied extensively for its impact on the cells lining the inside of your blood vessels. These cells, known as the endothelium, play a critical role in regulating blood flow, controlling how easily vessels widen and relax to allow oxygen-rich blood to reach the tissues that need it most. Research has shown that flavanols found in cacao may help support this endothelial function, encouraging healthy blood vessel flexibility rather than the stiffness commonly associated with aging and reduced circulation. Let's talk about why this matters so specifically for people over 70. As blood vessels become less flexible with age, blood pressure often rises, circulation to the brain can become less efficient, and the risk of cardiovascular complications increases. Anything capable of supporting healthy blood vessel function naturally and consistently becomes increasingly valuable during this stage of life. This is precisely why cacao has drawn so much scientific attention, not as an indulgent treat to feel guilty about, but as a food containing genuinely bioactive compounds with measurable effects on one of the most critical systems in the aging body. Think about what this actually means in practice. Not all chocolate delivers this benefit equally. Highly processed milk chocolate loaded with sugar and stripped of much of its original flavanol content during manufacturing does not offer the same effect as dark chocolate with a high percentage of actual cacao. The specific compounds responsible for supporting blood vessel health are often significantly reduced or destroyed during the kind of processing used to make sweeter, more commercially popular chocolate products. This distinction matters enormously because it explains why so much confusion exists around this topic. People hear chocolate is good for blood flow, then consume a candy bar with minimal actual cacao content, and wonder why they don't notice any difference. Here is something worth sitting with for a moment. Imagine two people both eating chocolate regularly. One consumes a small amount of dark chocolate with a high cacao percentage a few times a week mindfully as part of an otherwise balanced diet. The other regularly eats heavily processed, sugar-laden chocolate products, believing they're getting some version of the same benefit. Based on the actual compounds each of them is consuming, their outcomes in terms of blood vessel health could be dramatically different, despite both technically eating chocolate on a regular basis. This is exactly why the message around dark chocolate has been so widely misunderstood. It was never simply about eating more chocolate. It was about understanding that a specific, minimally processed form of this food contains genuinely protective compounds, ones capable of supporting the flexibility and function of blood vessels in a way that becomes increasingly valuable as we age. This is not permission to overindulge. Even dark chocolate contains calories and should be eaten in reasonable amounts. But the guilt so many people have carried around this specific food, particularly later in life, may be based on an incomplete understanding of what it actually contains and how differently it behaves in the body compared to its heavily processed counterparts. Think about your own relationship with chocolate honestly for a moment. Have you avoided it entirely out of guilt, assuming all chocolate carries the same risk? Or have you perhaps gone the opposite direction, consuming heavily processed versions while believing you're getting some meaningful health benefit? For many people, understanding this distinction, choosing quality over quantity, minimally processed over heavily sweetened, changes an entire relationship with a food they've either avoided unnecessarily or misunderstood for years. None of this requires overhauling your entire diet or suddenly eating chocolate daily in large amounts. It requires understanding that a small, consistent amount of high-quality dark chocolate, ideally 70% cacao or higher, may genuinely support one of the most important systems in your aging body, your blood vessels, the very network responsible for keeping your brain sharp, your energy steady, and your organs properly nourished for years to come. So here is my question for you. Did you already know that dark chocolate could support blood vessel health specifically, or has this always felt like something you simply avoided out of guilt without really understanding why? I would genuinely love to know where you stand, so drop your answer in the comments below because I think a lot of people watching this are about to look at their next piece of chocolate very differently.